Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this meeting of the Somerset Berkley Regional School Committee to order at 6:35 p.m. Due notice having been posted. Let the record show that this meeting is being electronically recorded. And if anyone in the audience also wishes to electronically record this meeting, you should notify the committee at this time. Any such recording may be subject to reasonable restrictions imposed by the chair to the extent permitted under the open meeting law. Roll call. Mr. Gilladucci.
Here.
Mrs. Field.
Here.
Mr. Machado.
Here.
And the chair is present. Mrs. Gagliotti notified me a short time ago that she is not feeling well and will not be able to attend the meeting, and Mrs. Terra has notified us that she has a car emergency and may not be able to be here. We do expect that Mr. Larrabee will be here shortly, but we do have a quorum.
And you mentioned that he's just been running a little bit late. He has a meeting in Taunton.
Okay. In addition, present with us this evening is our student representative, Kara Canoose, who we will introduce a little more formally in a few moments. Our Superintendent of Schools, Jeffrey Schoonover, our Director of Business and Finance, Lindsay Albernaz, our Director of Buildings and Grounds, Carlos Campos, our Recording Secretary, Robin Vaccaro, and David Lenziski, the Principal of the Somerset Berkley Regional High School. I believe that's everyone. So I would ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So the first item that we have on the agenda is a report by our student representative, Kara Canoose, and we're very glad to welcome Kara as the student representative to our school committee. She is here, I believe, by virtue of having recently been elected president of the senior class, which is one of only one of her accomplishments. I believe she's active in DECA. Is that correct, Mr. Gilladucci?
Co-president.
Yes, and I think holds various other positions. I know she's very involved with the music as well. So we really are very pleased to have you. We welcome your input as a student representative. We think it's an important perspective to have, and hopefully we'll be able to not only have a report from you about what is going on at the high school, what accomplishments our students are making. One of the initiatives that we've undertaken this year is to try to recognize student achievement at our meetings. So if you have any ideas about students or faculty members that we might invite to our school committee meetings to recognize things that they've accomplished, we'd welcome your input. And as I indicated to you earlier, in terms of discussion of any item that we have on the agenda, you're a full participant. And so we welcome your input as a student perspective. So I know it's your first meeting, but if you have anything to report this evening, feel free.
Thank you. I called Cam before this and I said, what should I say? So I have a list of a few things. So just to begin with sports, just a few teams. The soccer, both boys and girls, qualified for the tournament, so they're off to that. The field hockey is undefeated. They're SEC champs and they're top 20 in the state. Football won the SEC large and they qualified for the playoffs, and this Friday they're going to play Foxborough. For Music Town, we just had our Kiddies Day, the ball, Pops Night, and the band competition. Our Blue Raider Marching Band has an undefeated regular season and they're off to Pennsylvania, I'm almost positive, for the national championships. We also are starting Case Rally season. So what we do for Case Rally is each grade makes a skit and we raise money for Penny Pounds, which all goes to a charity. And it's basically a pep rally for the Thanksgiving Day football game. Also, our clubs are just beginning to start up as well. The Anti-Bullying Coalition and the Gay Straight Alliance are having their first meetings of the year. I know the ABC was today. We also have a new club founded by Alex Celia called Girl Up, and it's basically about the empowerment of both genders, and there's a lot of, I think there's over 60 members, so a lot of people are interested in that, and they're just raising money for various different causes. We also have DECA, as you mentioned, I'm in DECA, and we were just recently recognized internationally for a video we made about why we love DECA. There was 4 schools out of everyone that were recognized, and we won. Also, our unified basketball team is undefeated as well, and that's all I have for today. Thank you.
How long is the video?
The video, it could only be 30 seconds.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, maybe we can see it at one of our
Oh,
future
yeah.
meetings. Okay. Great, well, thank you very much. All right, so the next item we have on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
Okay, I do have a presentation to share with you just about upcoming changes in Mcat. But before that, just a few quick things. The second half of October and the first week of November every year are extremely busy in terms of professional development with conferences and so on. So I think it was just over a week ago, Mr. Lenziski and I and Mrs. Brailsford and Mrs. Pereira attended the NIASC Fall Showcase. At that conference, we were able to attend various presentations by schools from around New England, sharing their best practices on how work that they've done in aligning to the NIASC standards. We also learned about some pretty significant upcoming changes that are happening with NIASC. Mr. Lenziski will find out sometime this spring when all of those schools who will be visited in 2021, which we are, will have a meeting in sometime in the spring of 2018, and we'll determine whether or not we are we'll find out then if we were a spring 2021 visit or a fall 2021. And then from there, we'll know what our timeline is for work that needs to be done. But there are some significant changes in terms of the self-study, and there are actually 2 visits now. There's a visit that'll take place about 1.5 to 2 years before the true visit, and then just the reports are different. But we'll share. There's actually the December has marks the annual NIASC conference, so I'm sure we'll find out more information then. And then when Mr. Lenziski attends that meeting in the spring, we'll have more information to share at that time. I think we'll be prepared to share all of the details with the committee, and the timeline of when things will be taking place. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of attending a conference at Holy Cross from it was sponsored by the U.S. Attorney General's office, and it was on preventing hate speech in K-12 schools. It was very well represented from districts throughout the Commonwealth, and the sessions, there was a series of breakout sessions and keynotes, and all addressing various topics of hate speech and racism and just other issues related to those that are affecting our K-12 schools. It was very, very powerful throughout the day, and I have some information that to share with leaders in both Somerset and Somerset Berkley. Today and tomorrow is the MassQ conference, which is the annual technology conference at Gillette Stadium. We had a team of 5 or 6, I believe, from the high school, and then additional people from K-8. We'll be back tomorrow, so some of the people who are there today might not be there tomorrow, and other people will step in. But again, it's one of the best conferences for learning technology to use in your classroom for instructional technology purposes. It's really probably the one I look forward to more than anything else, and we have the reviews from our teachers who go are always outstanding. So we'll have teachers who attend that, and we'll have those sessions. We'll come back and share what they've learned with their colleagues, and hopefully some of them in our PD in just a couple of weeks on full-day professional development. And next week, in addition to the MASS, MASC joint conference, there's also the District Management Council annual leadership meeting. So Mr. Lenziski, Mrs. Ferris, I believe, myself will be there. It's the second half of Thursday and Friday. And that is Innovating with Impact, the title of this year's program, and addresses personalized learning, blended learning, and one-to-one learning environments. So between today and tomorrow with MassQ, and then that next week, certainly a lot of professional development centered around the one-to-one personalized learning environment that we are creating at the high school. With that said, tomorrow night we do have parent-teacher conferences. At the high school, it's the second of the two. And as I mentioned at our last meeting, the Bristol County DA's office will have the Hidden Plain Sight set up again in the library for parents to visit. I don't think it was really well attended the first time around, but it might have also been due to where they set up in the library. So hopefully we can have a different location tomorrow that maybe gives them a little bit more visibility to people who are passing by. And I shared with the committee last week a memo that I sent to the faculty, and I just wanted to share it. I will be sending out something similar to parents. Just talking about homework over vacations. This is something I've been considering now for a year or two, and certainly with the increases in stress and anxiety that we keep experiencing within our schools and within all levels of the schools in Somerset, Berkley. I'm asking the teachers to not assign homework over those extended periods where kids are away. Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, February and April, with maybe a few exceptions, AP classes before April vacation, but we're seeing that our students are just experiencing so much stress and anxiety that a vacation, a break from school should be a break from school, and to share the time with their family, with their friends, if it means going away on vacation, to not have to worry about umpteen hours of homework over that time. I think we'll, for those few times during the year, limit the stress that our students are facing so that they can get that mental break away from school, just as our teachers need that mental break, anyone who takes a vacation. So there is that. I will be sending out a memo to parents, to families, just describing that as well. So with that said, let me see. Okay. There are some pretty significant changes happening with MCAS over the next couple of years. It's already started at the elementary and middle school levels in grades 3 to 8. The high school is retaining its legacy MCAS for one more year. This will be the last year that we administer the standard MCAS for math and ELA. So you have this information. I won't go through all of it that's there, but it's called the Next Generation MCAS. Originally it was being called MCAS 2.0, but this is now the terminology that the state is using to describe it. And you can see from the bottom bullet there, at the high school level, grade 10, it's starting in the spring of 2019. So one of the things that will be a little bit different, the legacy, the 4 categories that we're used to: advanced, proficient, needs improvement, and warning. The new categories are exceeding, meeting, partially meeting, and not meeting expectations. Now, this is a little premature for the high school, but when this is a sample grade 8 report, I believe it says in the upper right corner. When parents ultimately receive a report, this is what it will look like. It'll have those 4 different categories and where the student falls. This one, fictional student in grade 8 math scored a 541, which is in the exceeding expectations category. And at the bottom of the page, you determine how that student compared to others in the same school, the district, and then the state. And then you get a more detailed breakdown of how a student performs in the main categories of this math MCAS test. So you can identify where students are particularly strong or where they need a little bit more work. So one of the big changes with this is how the scores are going to be distributed. We've grown accustomed to, well, let me actually jump ahead. I'll go back. So this is what the scores look like now. This was based on the MCAS results in 2015. The top bar represents the percent of students who either exceeded or were advanced or proficient. So you can see that we started out with a fairly, well, 60% or so of our students are proficient, and it increases up until high school, where it's usually about the 90% mark. And there's usually a pretty significant jump between grades 8 and 10. There are many who have said how, comparing the high school test to the tests in middle school and elementary, that the high school tests are relatively easier for the grade level. I don't know, but the results here we can see that, and we know from our own results that math, for instance, grade 10, we've experienced in the neighborhood of 60 to 70% of our students scoring advanced, with another 20% or so of our students proficient. So, you know, maybe 85 to 90% of our students would be proficient or advanced each year in mathematics, and a little bit more in ELA. So, just going back, the state's telling us that that's not going to be the case any longer. So this is, for this year, this is what the results look like for grades 3 to 8 on average. You can see it's a little difficult to tell the top two colors, but the exceeding category, exceeding expectations, is that very top of these bars, which represents about 10%, usually a little bit less than 10% of the population in each grade. Those who are meeting expectations are about 40%, so really the top two categories are consistently about 50% across the board in grades 3 to 8. Those who are partially meeting expectations represent about 40% of the population, and then again about 10% are in the not meeting expectations category. And the state is telling us why that breakdown. So here is the sample of the 2015 NAEP test. So again, looking at the same results here, 2015, where Massachusetts was #1 or tied for first in the country in math and ELA in grades 4 and 8. Our students were no better, or except for, I guess, grade 4 math here, no better than 50% scoring in the top two categories. So the state is trying to match the MCAS, next generation MCAS scores, with some of these more national exams. And NAEP is just one example of other exams that they're using to quantify the results. So what they're saying is, so you can see there the results from the state NAEP. What they're saying is that even in grade 10, for math and ELA, we should be expecting results more like that, beginning in spring of 2019. So what does that mean for graduation? Let's see. Go back to this. So this is the Planning for the High School Competency Determination Standard. So right now, a student needs to score 220 or better to be needs improvement, and that usually gets them a ticket to graduation. Also depends on some coursework that they need to take. So they don't need to really be proficient or advanced. Needs improvement with some additional coursework. Proficient or advanced is certainly what we strive for, but if they are in the needs improvement category, they do have to make sure that they take 4 years of math, 4 years of an extra year of science, if that's the test that we're looking at. So there are these other requirements, which is really explained here for the educational proficiency plans, the EPPs. But what DESE is recommending to the Board of Education is that their recommendation right here, for the regulations, they take what the 220 score is for the legacy MCAS that needs improvement, and try to determine what an equivalent score would be on that scale I just showed you, with the exceeding expectations, meeting, partially meeting, and not meeting. And they're guessing that that would be a very, very small percentage of the population, less than the 10% that I referenced, at least for the first couple of years. And this is really just to collect some data so that the students who are currently in 8th grade and 9th grade, which are the classes of 21 and 22, there's a little bit more data that's coming in before graduation requirements, new graduation requirements are now being held to them. So, because they don't know what it is, and because so much rides on scores on the MCAS, they want to have this 2-year, I don't want to say pilot, but 2 years of collecting this data and then really identifying what the spread is for students before determining what the new graduation standard will be for the class of 2023, our current 7th graders. So that'll be the first class that will be impacted by really the new graduation requirement. So this is what
happens to 21 and 22?
they will. All right. So this graph represents what will happen for classes of 21 and 22, where right now on average, let's just say MCAS doesn't say whether this is math or ELA. Well, let's just suppose 47% of the students are advanced and 45% are proficient. 6% are needs improvement, 3% are failing. That's under the current system. What they're trying to figure out is, where does the 220 mark fall on the new scale? And you can see that bottom arrow, once they identify what that score is, that bottom population will be the ones that will need that additional coursework in order to graduate if they fall in that category. So 47% advanced will now be 10%, 45% proficient will still be about 45% proficient, but only between the 50 and 90% ranges. The 6% needs improvement is now going to grow to about 40 to 45%, partially meeting expectations. And that 3% fail, you can see that they have to figure out what it is, but that bottom bar on the right-hand side. And this is what they're proposing for the classes of 21 and 22.
So, just so I understand, they're saying about 40% of their expectation is that 40% of the classes of 21 and 22 are going to graduate having scored needs improvement.
Yes, partially meeting expectations.
Okay. And so what happens in 2023? Do students still in that category?
The state doesn't know yet.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
So, more reason for anxiety among 7th graders, huh?
Yes.
Great.
Other recommendations, even though they're putting a lot of effort into describing their recommendation 1, I think they feel fairly confident that will be the one, but they do have some other recommendations that they would consider. But certainly it's really giving kids and families adequate notice of where they stand. High school science is also undergoing some major changes. We do have new standards. Our high school, even though we have new science standards, we have science tests that reflect the old standards. So many schools are caught in this limbo status of, do we align to the new standards and then have a misalignment between what we're teaching and what's being assessed, or do we or do we stick with the old and not forget the new standards right now? And they're actually recommending that for grades 3 to, or K to 8, we move forward with the new standards. But for high school, the advice was just stay with the old standards for now, because of the importance of graduation requirements with these high school tests. But still, by doing so, we now have new standards which we are best for teaching science. But us and others, many others like us, are not teaching to those to that science framework just yet because of our MCAS tests. But there will be some changes there. They're not going to have as many tests, and they haven't really given us a lot of information about what the new science tests will look like. You can see that is also happening in the spring of 2020, and we'll just have to determine at that point who is taking that test in the spring of 2020 and in what subject, once we have more guidance from the state. So there's a lot happening right now, and this was the first bit of information that they've given to us. And now we're just waiting to hear. There's a timeline for the board decisions. You can see that these proposals were being made this month, and we're expecting the Board of Education to vote on it in January of 2018. So at that point, we should have, if they do vote in January, we'll have more details then, and a little bit more direction on how to prepare for 2019 for the first administration of that test, but then really the impact on the classes of 21, 22, and 23.
So to kind of summarize or get an overview, the traditional MCAS test is going to continue to be administered at the high school level through 2020.
In ELA and math, this is the last year. In science, we have 18 and 19 are the last 2 years.
And have some schools been taking the PARC test on a trial basis?
No, we have, because we still need graduation. This test is still a graduation requirement. The PARC was only an option for grades 3 to 8. And then this is just a little bit more of a timeline if that recommendation is accepted by the Board of Education. So you can see the impact of each class in the school year 17-18 and beyond. And off to the right, the competency determination requirements. You can see the class of 2020 is under the legacy, 21 and 22 that interim period, and class of 23 is whatever is determined. They'll be the first class impacted by that. Similar to what was happening back in 1997 or 8, when we had the first graduating class from our high schools graduating under those under our current standards.
So on this chart, right now the tests are administered to 10th graders, correct?
In ELA and math, yes.
Okay. And in some school districts, science, and in others in the 9th grade.
Correct.
And so is that going to change under this new, I see you have grades 11 and 12. Are tests going to be administered in those grades, or is that just those students who don't meet the standard the first time around that would have to retake the test?
With retakes, I'm assuming it's going to be the same way that it's been done before. If they're not successful that first time, those will be the ones who have to retake it. But with science, I don't know if we're still going to have the flexibility of administering the test in grades 9 or 10. We don't have that direction yet.
I'm just asking.
Yes.
On the chart, why are grades 11 and 12 listed there for each year? Not.
Oh, just to show where they're going to be. Just to show the 4 years. So it's the class of So in the 2022-2023 column, that's the class of 23.
Yes.
In 12th grade, that's just where that class happens to be. It's not, most of the test is still taking place in grades 9 and 10, because we do need the retake options for students in those upper grades, and the tests really are a determination of where they are at the end of the sophomore year toward graduation. So why we have grades 11 and 12 on this chart from the state, I think it's just really for placement purposes to see where they are in that
Okay.
span of time.
Just trying to figure it out. Okay.
Any questions regarding that at this point? So we have MCAS
We'll wait for the
changing,
updates.
NEASC standards, we're experiencing changes there. We'll, as we learn information, I'll share it with the committee, so that you're kept abreast of the information as well.
Are MCAS paper-based for the new generation, do you know?
No, next generation, it's all computer-based testing. So one of the things that we don't have on this chart, we have, or on this presentation, I left out, well, I don't have to go back, but in grades 3 through 8, we are, the state is rolling out the computer-based testing, one elementary grade and one middle school grade at a time. So this past year, we administered the tests in grades 4 and 8, so that our current freshmen, last year's 8th graders, next year when they take ELA and math in the spring of 19, they will have had the experience of taking the computer-based test when they were in 8th grade. And every year, we're adding 2 more grades. So this year is grades 4, 5, 7, and 8. And then next year, all 3 through 8, or spring of 2019, all 3 through 8 and grade 10.
Does the state offer any type of support to school districts that may have some challenges regarding computer-based testing? Whether it's with bandwidth, whether it's with hardware? Do they recognize that in some areas that might be a concern?
In some, yes. We actually, I just had to let the state know what we were doing this year for our tests in grade 3 through 8, whether or not we were just doing the 4 required grades or all 6. We happen in Somerset anyway, we're doing grades 3 through 8, we're doing all of them. But part of the survey was also asking, well, you could either file for an appeal to take a paper-based test, and if you do so, you have to really provide enough evidence to show that you cannot administer the test online. And they're expecting to have very few schools not participate, and there might be some funding, or at least encouraging looking for funds through E-rate and other programs, but at least for us, there wasn't really any support that was coming our way.
All right.
Okay?
This year's MCAS results were announced recently.
Yes, Ms. Haskell is going to share those with you.
Oh, okay.
Do you want, I don't know how you want to do it.
I can get it.
Okay. Did you have a question first, Mr. Pierce, or do we want to wait for?
Well, my questions may be answered by the presentation, so we can just start.
I hope so.
Well, what I wanted to mention is, apart from the results themselves, the Herald News incorrectly reported that last year the regional school district and our high school was a level 2 school, which was inaccurate. After repeal, we were determined to be a level 1 High School. And so Mrs. Tara had mentioned that to me. She's not here, but I had also intended to just point out that correction to the Herald News. They probably looked at the original results and weren't able to identify the fact that we had filed an appeal and had ultimately determined to be a level 1 high school.
Okay. So, tonight's presentation, we are going to take a look at the results and our action steps. So our goals for tonight, we'll provide an overview of the 2017 MCAS achievement results for Somerset Berkley Regional High School, share some of the progress that we've made, and share our action steps. And Principal Lanzinski is here with us tonight, and he and I have worked together to talk a little bit about our action steps and how we're going to move forward, and we'll share those in just a few minutes. So, first, our grade 10 results. We are at 92% advanced and proficient. From here, maybe I should get my eyes checked. It is a little bit blurry. You do have the presentation in front of you. You can also see the trends from 2014 to 2017. So all of these graphs will show that progression. On the left-hand side are advanced and proficient, and on the right-hand side are our needs improvement and warning failing. And that chart is based on these numbers here. So down at the very bottom, on the very bottom row of this slide, it shows our median SGP. SGP stands for our student growth percentile. So as you can see, for English Language Arts this year, our student growth percentile was at 38% for the school. You'll also notice the numbers in the district are the same because the school is a single school in one district. The student growth percentile is typically between 40 and 60. So as you can see, our ELA is at 38 this year. It is lower than typical. And I think it gives a little bit more information, again, from 2014 to 2017 in terms of the advanced proficient needs improvement, the number of students that were included, and also our CPI and the percentage for that. Math proficiency for grade 10. We are at 87 advanced and proficient, and our student growth percentile is 62. So again, that typical growth is between 40 and 60, so we are above typical growth with our math for this year. And science, we do take, as Mr. Pierce had just alluded to, in terms of the science, different schools, different students take the MCAS at different times. Our freshmen take the MCAS, and they take the physics MCAS. So I'm sorry, that's a typo, I apologize. It says grade 10. I can't change it right this second, but I will. So these were actually our grade 9 students, and we are at 74% advanced and proficient. You'll notice on this one, there is no student growth percentile. Because different students take it different years, and they're coming from 8th grade to 10th grade sometimes, not with us, but they don't actually give a student growth percentile for the science MCAS. So you have actually seen this graphic before. We showed it last year, and as you can see at the core is improved and inspired teaching and learning. That is the outcome that we're looking for. So as we are sharing with you MCAS results, it is a single data point in what we are working toward systemically and as a district to constantly improve and inspire teaching and learning, and at a lot of different levels. And as you can see again from the graphic, it's very colorful, but it also gives us a lot of different points, and that's the representation of the graphic, is to represent all of these different points that come together to help us get to the core of the work that we want to do on behalf of kids. So I wanted to remind you of that and to remind ourselves to some extent that this is why we're here and why we do what we do. And we are working to bring in some data points other than MCAS that help us to track our progress along the way. So, Mr. Lenzinski, would you like to join us for the next steps in terms of our action steps with Somerset Berkley Regional High School? Are you going to work from there?
I can work from here.
Okay, great. Because when he stands near me, I look especially tall. So our curriculum redesign, again, this is a little bit of a reminder. Our timeline is up there, and some of it looks like a flashback. It is a flashback. We have started this work, and we are continuing this work through at least 2018. It is ongoing and in process, and we have made some really good progress. Last year, our teachers during common planning time primarily focused on stage 1, which are the desired results. What do we want students to know, be able to do, and understand? What are the transfer goals associated with that? The essential questions guiding our work, and those real world applications. We want kids to take what they learn and be able to use it in real life. This year, our primary focus has been and will be assessment redesign. It's the evidence. How do we know that students are able to do and have learned what we wanted them to learn? And if they do, what do we do next? And if they don't, what do we do next? So a lot of the work that we are doing this year will also include the formative and performance assessments, not only designing them, but also, I think we've talked about before, the one-to-one initiative that we're rolling out in the next month or so, which is really exciting because it will transform our instructional practice and transform our classrooms and improve and inspire teaching and learning. Last year, we talked about completing and implementing our district strategic plan and school improvement plans, and I got rid of the create because we are working on implementation at this point. We have a strategic plan and school improvement plan that are strong, and again, that foundation is the support of kids and moving our district forward. And Curriculum Instruction Assessment Team, our CIA, has continued their work this year. We have met as a full group one time, and our mini teams are meeting every month on the third Thursday of the month to continue that work. So we are really excited about that and don't want it to slow down or stop because it, again, advances our mission.
So our one-to-one devices in our development plan is we're planning on rolling out our one-to-one devices on November 9th. The IT department has been working yeoman's work to get the devices ready for that. Devices are ready. We have provided a plan for us to get them to the students that will be efficient and make sure that we get everybody what they need. These one-to-one devices have also, it doesn't start with the giving out of the one-to-one devices. It has really started earlier, where we've already been starting in professional development, we've been starting in common planning times, about talking about how do we change how we teach using this technology and getting these structures in place and practices in place. So we had a really good professional development last Friday, where we got to talk a little bit about how we want to use this. Some of this more on the practical day-to-day side, but others on how to create better instructional practices. And really, as it says there in the center, you know, student-centered instructional practices. Get away from the sage on the stage and get more involved with students being at the forefront of discovering and creating what's going on. And being able to get kids what they need. And it's not painting every child with one large brush, but trying to find out what each student needs to be successful and being able to personalize it for them. And we've had quite a few groups walk around and do learning walks and walk-arounds to be able to look at each other and see what some of the best teaching techniques that are being used in the school and share ideas, and it's really been a positive process so far.
In terms of data literacy, again, one of our objectives, our goals is to allow the data to drive our decision-making process, and it is one of those pieces that we started last year, again with CIA and a district data team. And this year, we will be working with our school data team, our content coordinators, and our principals and assistant principals, not only to take a look at the MCAS data, but again, in the redesign of formative and performance assessments, we have created student samples and student work that teams can take a look at. And so teachers are assessing their own student work, but we're able to talk a little bit about what the results are and be able to use that data to inform our instruction in our classrooms and throughout our departments. So those are, again, with our professional development plan, Mr. Lenzinski and I have worked with the content coordinators to provide those opportunities during early release days or in their professional learning communities. And again, as he mentioned, teachers are taking the initiative and they are starting to incorporate these things into their regular conversations, and so we will continue to support that. We also want to be able to analyze the data and use it to inform our decisions, not just look at it and make a snap judgment about what we're going to do tomorrow in our classrooms, but also there are some tools that are available to us that we would like to explore further. So the EWIS is the Early Warning Indicator System, and that is on the Mass DESE website and gives us, there's actually some built-in professional development, and Mr. Lenzinski and I and Mr. Schoonover and I have had some conversations about maybe bringing the state in to do some trainings with us. There are also, as I was preparing for this, there are some YouTube videos I was listening to as we were kind of working through. So there are some things that are built in that we could do together in our own professional learning community, but also maybe bringing in the state to work with us, because one of the conversations that we had was our students, as you're seeing in the single data point of MCAS, they are graduating from high school meeting the requirements, both the state requirements and the school requirements. And what we'd like to be able to do is provide those supports sooner. And so those were some of the conversations that we had about how we might do that. And we thought that, we're hoping that EWIS would be one of those pieces. Also, that by creating this continuum of assessments and curriculum units, you have common assessments, and again, looking at student data as we go, it is a checkup as opposed to MCAS, which is more like an autopsy. Okay, so we would do these checkups as we go along, and because they're common, we're able to gather that data, again, use that data within our classrooms and within our departments to help to provide those supports for kids on an ongoing basis. So when we do, in fact, take MCAS, which is a summative assessment, we are watching some of those results increase and improve. Me? I got it. So one of the other topics of conversation was maybe taking a look at our current scheduling. So not just the schedule as a whole, but also how do we ensure that the courses that are in place are best supporting the needs of all of our students. And so one of the examples, again, I'm the Title I director for the district, and so I've had the opportunity to work with Mr. Lenzinski and the content coordinators on putting some Title I supports in place for ELA, math, and science. And so my first response tends to be, okay, are the programs that we're using or that we have in place working, and how might we adjust them? So we did make some adjustments to math in the last couple of years, and we do have a math lab that we have incorporated into the school day, and students who need support are afforded that opportunity during a variety of class periods throughout the school year. And so we talked about that being a possibility maybe for science and or ELA, although we have some other supports in place in terms of reading through Title I at the high school. It may also be some sort of actual course that would, again, identify what the needs are of individual students and provide a personalized learning plan to help bring them to where they need to be in terms of those skills, knowledge, and understandings. ensuring that our teaching strategies support students to the maximum level. And again, that's what Mr. Lenzinski was just talking about with our one-to-one, and that's not just the professional learning we've done this year. It's last year also, and the year before. We've been preparing for this, and we are getting better. Again, this is a single indicator. We are confident that we are moving in the right direction and are continuing to improve throughout the course of the last 3 years, 4 years. Professional learning also that supports our teachers. And so we are consistently and constantly asking them what it is they need, and we're working together to ensure that they get it in a variety of ways, whether it be after school, during the school day, during our early release days. And I am really excited. I think we're all getting excited for November 7th, which will be our first ever Ed Camp SSB, Somerset, Berkley. So it is a full professional learning day. And it will take place at Somerset Berkley Regional High School, and all of the teachers from our district will be at the high school, and we will have 10 or 11 classrooms going during each session. We will have 5 different sessions. We have partnered with the Massachusetts Teachers Association. We actually have Dan Callahan coming in to launch us for the day, and we're really excited about all of the choices and the opportunities that we're going to provide for our teachers on that day for professional learning. Do you have any questions?
I just have, well, first of all, this is understood, and your presentation was fantastic. This is something that we have been talking about, I think, since you've come on board, about how this has to be a long-term vision on where we want to be and where we want to move forward to, and how we look at the data and making sure that we don't get stuck on one data point. One thing I did want to ask a little bit further about, and you might not have the answer to this because it's kind of not really pertaining to MCAS, but you mention it, is taking a look at the schedule. Is there the intent to have a timeline built around when you're going to look at the schedule? Obviously that will affect classes next year. There's a whole thing that goes into looking at, you know, what course selections might be. Any other maybe details around how you're going to look at the schedule and what your timetable might be for that?
So currently we are, and Mrs. Schoonover has been working with the STA because it's a group that has to both agree about what we're doing. So I know there's committee members being chosen so that we can all get together. We're taking some of the preliminary work that the steering committee has already done in prior, some of the work that the group, the DMC has done, and I know they'll be involved with helping us out going forward. Anytime you change a schedule, it's a major process. All your credits and how many credits you need to graduate are based on your schedule. So it's changing all of that. It's making sure we're looking at what's the best needs of the students and what initiatives do we want to bring forward that the current schedule doesn't necessarily allow us to do. So there's a lot of conversation that needs to be done. To say that we're going to have a new schedule for next year, I think it is not necessarily going to happen. I think there's too much to go over and too many details. I think once you agree to something, then you've got to try to figure out, okay, now what are all the dominoes that are going to fall because of this new schedule, and making sure that it's all in place so that you don't have a student that's caught up in the wash and something happens to them that the structure has caused an issue. And we want to make sure that once we roll this out that every student's aware, parents are aware, changes are aware, so that everybody has as smooth of a transition for such a major process.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you've got the steering committee involved and there's a plan there around how you're going to move forward, and that you're also taking the DMC report that had been done a while back, just to kind of, you know, not take everything in there, but have some type of guidance from that as well as you start to move forward. So that's great. Thank you.
Okay, so does anyone else have any more comments? I do. I think we need an opportunity to digest this information. There's additional information that I'm interested in seeing. We've looked at comparative data in other years. I'm not sure how soon that is available, but I'd like to see comparative data. I would also like to see, in the memo that went out from the superintendent, there was a reference to certain categories that also impact on the determination of the level of the high school, which include economically disadvantaged students, English language learners. We haven't seen any of that data, and comparative to previous years. So there's more information that I would like to see before I comment on our performance this year. And so perhaps at the next meeting or the December meeting, once we've had an opportunity to gather all that information and the committee's had an opportunity to look at it in advance of a meeting, we can revisit this topic.
But for point of clarification though, I agree. The level of a school is not solely determined by MCAS results, correct?
For a high school, it's MCAS results, graduation rates, dropout rates,
Okay.
student growth, but based on MCAS. But it
Okay.
is primarily MCAS with those other two categories
Okay.
for high schools.
Okay, so maybe it'd be in agreement with Mr. Pierce that for an upcoming meeting down the road, maybe we can look at that holistically as an agenda item with just all the data.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Saskla?
Thank you.
All right, I will mention, we have to conclude our meeting by 8:45, so there are a couple of matters that we really have to discuss tonight, so we may skip over a couple of items and come back to them if we have sufficient time. So, under budget and financial matters, we have approval of monthly invoices. The monthly invoices are here. We did have reports circulated. Does anyone have any questions about the monthly invoices? All right. Then I would ask everyone to sign the warrants before you leave. It's important because we do have a couple of people absent, so we need a majority of the committee to sign the warrants. Budget transfers. Mrs. Albanese?
Thank you. So, Robin circulated to you with the agenda attachments 5 budget transfers that I'm looking to have approved tonight. I can go through them one by one if that's preferred. Okay, so number 1 requests funds moved into the school committee contracted services for the transportation software consultant that I will be presenting later on today in the agenda. As that was not a budgeted item, there are funds that are needed to fund that. We did have excess in the solid waste removal, which is our recycling and trash pickup, using the monthly service fees that they're charging us now. We've projected to have about $1,200 left in that line for this year. The fixed charges and insurance, which is basically our student secondary insurance for athletes that suffer concussions. They can first dip into their own personal insurance, and the school also offers secondary insurance. With the premiums paid for this year, there's a $405,000 excess. $405,000 excess. $405. That would make my life way easier right now. $405 excess, and also with our positions and pay for FY18's budget, the plan during the budget season was to reduce some of the positions. The plan wasn't 100%, the positions were not 100% what was planned for the budget, so there was some excess in someone's longevity account. So I'm going to pull those funds to fund some of this. So there was some excess in the amount of $395 in that line. So that's the first one. Second one, majority of them is small, $20 for the school, Mass Association of School Superintendents. It was $20 more than what we budgeted for the membership fee, as well as the Mass School Admin Association was $100 more, and the NEASC membership was $45 more. There was some clerical overtime over the summer. I'm estimating we'll probably need about $600 for the year for that, as well as an additional $717 for textbooks for the business department based on higher than expected enrollment for some of these students. So we did have to buy some additional textbooks for those classes. Again, there's excess in the teacher's longevity line, 1,115, as well as the second school nurse. We were delayed in filling that position. I think she has started this week, I believe. So we had about 6 weeks of excess salary in that line that we had budgeted that we can use. So I'm going to ask to use $367 for that. The third one is for an increase in our Comcast line for internet services. With the need of increased bandwidth at the high school for the one-to-one devices, our Comcast fee has gone up in the amount of $4,660 for the year. Again, I would like to pull those funds from the school nurse salary line because there's excess in that line. Number 4 is a large portion of this is $4,300, and that was to fix 3 large sinkholes that were in the parking lots of the high school. If we didn't address them sooner, they will just become worse. So Mr. Campos worked with a vendor over the past few months to get those fixed. We also had some contingency money that we needed to use for some work on the chillers at the high school, as well as a need for additional premiums in the amount of $1,110 for non-employee insurance, which is essentially the property insurance premium for the year, higher than budgeted. Again, I would like to pull the final amount that we have projected out of the second nurse salary, as well as we have some excess in our premiums and our workers' comp for the fiscal year. Those 2 budget transfers net out. And just the 5th one is really just a reclassification. There's no additional funds needed, but the Department of Ed is requesting that any monies that we spend on paying a Medicaid billing service vendor, which we do use New England Medical Billing. Historically, we were just taking that out of the revenue account. We were paying them out of a revenue account, but now they want us to break those out. So I'd like to create a new line for Medicaid billing services and reduce the miscellaneous revenue, which is where we typically pay these expenses out of, an amount of $3,900.
Okay, since the first item on the list relates to another
No,
agenda item,
it's reducing it.
which is under other matters, number 5, consider transportation consultant. Perhaps we could take that item up
Sure.
at this point and then consider the transfers.
Sure.
So everyone should have a copy of the professional services agreement.
Okay, so this is a professional services agreement for Transponder, which is our transportation routing software vendor. I had presented this proposal at the Somerset Public Schools School Committee meeting last Monday. Essentially, we have routing software, routing software, and we're at the point where we need some extra services for routing all of the students. There's about 1,000 kids on the software that are not established a route in the system. You have to manually go in and do that. It's a lot of front load work. I would like to have Transponder do this work. They are willing to go into our system, route all the kids, put them on a route, establish parameters as far as bus stops and walking distances to determine if we can reconfigure some of our actual bus counts. This proposal will be shared with the high school as well as Somerset Public Schools. So I would like the school committee to entertain the option of allowing me to have them assist with front loading this work and establishing this successfully so that we can use it going forward, because we do own the software now, we've paid for it. So I just think this is one final step before we can actually use it successfully.
Lindsay, the
So-
work that they do, would this, I didn't see it in the statement of work, would they be able to provide some type of training or manual that would allow you to be able to do this process going forward
Yes.
for each, okay.
That's the goal, is that every year we roll, the new K kids in, the 12th graders are leaving, the 8th graders going to high school, 5th goes to 6th. So with that they will work with me on how to do that. That's the hardest part. Once those students who are already in the system are in a route, it's pretty easy to run the routes. Essentially, what I would like to do is have all of the bus routes, talk to Fisher Bus, make sure that they're safe, make sure that they make sense to utilize, publish them on the website so that they're accurate, so that parents know exactly which bus their student is on. And because I don't think that right now that process is very streamlined, so we're just looking to improve the routing. Right now we rely on Fisher Bus to do our routes, so I would like to have some more visibility towards that.
And in this scope of work, it also says that Transponder will obtain an archive of the current route data. Is that something we have in our possession, or that we have to get from our?
I have it. I have the we have the software on our server. So, like I said, there's still about 1,000 kids that need to have a route put into it, and that's pretty intensive to do that. And so they can log into our server. They can pull the data. They can extract our student information system, which is uploading nightly from Aspen, and from there they can finagle the routes.
So the document says it's for the Somerset Public School District. Is this intended to be a joint contract?
Yes, essentially when we set us up, we did it under Somerset Public Schools. We included the high school as the school district, just so we would have 3 tiers, because we do share those vehicles with the K-8 school district.
So the total price is $4,250, and the proposal is that the regional school district pay $2,000 of the $4,250.
Right now, yes, because we do have to include Berkley in there, which is, I think, a little bit more intensive as far as where those kids are living and routing them, because every year those routes really do need to be tweaked a little bit more, because it's such a larger community.
Okay, and it also says that this is for the 2017-2018 school year. So we're gonna, are we gonna adjust routes perhaps mid-year?
No, we're not adjusting routes this school year. What I hope is for that, all of those students to be on a route and review those routes, so that when we roll forward for next year, then all of those students, we really have 12th graders leaving, and we'll have the K kids coming in, and the Berkley 9th graders will be coming in, and from there we can work with the routes. I just want to have a clean starting point, so then when we have all those new additions and changes, I can do it myself, and then we can establish the routes for next school year. I don't plan on changing any routes this year. I think that will just create chaos.
And by doing this, we will have a clear sense of what our transportation costs could look like, or, you know, help guide us as to how we have the most efficient routes, because as we know, transportation is a huge line item within our budget. So this is a step towards getting to a bit more transparency and hopefully efficiency.
That's my goal.
And if there needs to be policy changes based on the recommendations that come out, then that, I guess, would be a step 2 after the work is done. Okay.
Yes.
All right, are there any other questions? All right, in the absence of any questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the request to approve this contract with the regional school district's share of the contract price being $2,000.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Field and seconded by Mr. Machado. Any further discussion? Absence of discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay, so we can now return to the proposed budget transfers. Does anyone object to approving all 5 of the requested transfer in one motion? If there's no objection, I'll entertain a motion to approve the 5 proposed transfers as set forth in the schedule provided by Mrs. Albernaz.
So moved.
Second. Motion made by Mrs. Field and seconded by Mr. Larrabee. Any further discussion? In the absence of further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
So, all right, next is an item which we do need to resolve tonight, which are the recommendations on the policy. Oh, I'm sorry.
We can table that, Mr. Pierce.
Well, I don't know if we need to table it, but why don't we go to the other matters for the moment. We have a citation for Roger Levesque, who is retiring as a custodian. He's worked at the Somerset High School and the Somerset Berkley Regional High School for many, many years. We did invite Mr. Levesque to the opportunity to come to a meeting so that we could read the citation in his presence, but he indicated that he would prefer, I think he's afraid he might be a little moved. I think he's sad to be retiring, and we understand that. So let me read the citation. At a meeting of the Somerset Berkley Regional School Committee on October 25th, 2017, a citation was prepared, signed by members of the committee, and voted inscribed in the permanent records. Citation. Whereas Roger Levesque served as a custodian for the Somerset and Somerset Berkley schools for the past 30 years, and whereas he faithfully and conscientiously performed his duties on behalf of the students and staff of the Somerset and Somerset Berkley Schools District with integrity and high standards, Mr. Levesque is to be commended for the pride he showed in the schools, and he fulfilled his duties with the utmost attention to detail and an uncompromising commitment to excellence, earning the respect of colleagues, students, and staff while always maintaining the highest standards of cleanliness. Be it hereby resolved that the members of the Somerset Berkley Regional School Committee commend Roger Levesque in the official minutes recording this expression of appreciation and gratitude to an honored professional and extending best wishes for health and happiness in his retirement years. So again, we say thank you. I will entertain a motion to adopt the citation.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Machado and seconded by Mr. Larrabee. Is there any further discussion? Well, I would simply say I know I've gotten to know Mr. Levesque over the time that I've been on the regional school committee the past 6 years. He works during the day with our head custodian, and they're both an excellent team. They do a fantastic job, and he is obviously a long-standing and very committed employee. So with that, I will take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Next item, consider Massachusetts Association of School Committees resolutions. So we have resolutions that have been forwarded to us by the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. As we discussed at our last meeting, these resolutions are discussed and voted on at the delegate assembly, which occurs at the annual conference of the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. And as the delegate from the regional school district, I'd like to have the committee's sense of our position on these various resolutions. So the first is a proposal to move the Chapter 70 funding enrollment date to March 15th, which was submitted by the Framingham School Committee. And I believe the superintendent has some thoughts on this resolution.
Both Mrs. Alvarez and I talked about this, and neither of us are in favor of this resolution. For the high school, our enrollment is, for at least the years that I've been here, is always higher on October 1st than it is in March. So this would really decrease the enrollment that we would have our funding based upon. So I think that, assuming that trend continues, that Somerset Berkley, this would actually harm our school district versus maybe some of the others in the state.
And do we have any sense of why? Actually, this one does not say that it is recommended by the MASC Board of Directors. Mr. Ghilarducci, did you attend the forum on these resolutions?
No, I wasn't available, I don't think.
And I'm not sure if there are, this is proposed by Framingham. They are a rather large school district. They're in the throes now of moving from being the largest town in the state to a new municipality, I guess, new city, with a different form of government. I know that they do have a lot of, a very large number of English language learners and economically disadvantaged students, and it may be that it's something that addresses their needs, but isn't necessarily consistent with ours, so. Is there any?
And I would just add, as we go through the budgeting process, I know it's always beneficial to Lindsay to have those preliminary numbers in January, so we know at least what we're expecting for Chapter 70 funding. And if this were to be in March, we would go through that entire process, not knowing at all what we'd be getting from the state, or at least having that idea.
I'm sure a lot of the people attending are going to be speaking against it.
Yeah, I'm wondering why they, though, say that this would help them to better budget. Does anyone else?
At every conference, Mr. Pierce, they're always submitting things. Framingham always leads the top of the list as far as, they think they're rewriting everything.
Okay.
The next thing will be the Constitution.
They have a right to ask. So, is there a sense of the committee? Does anyone have any further thoughts?
I can just share that the Somerset Public Schools met earlier this month, and we voted no on this resolution also.
All right, so I will entertain a motion that our committee direct the delegate to vote against this resolution, number one.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Machado and seconded by Mr. Larrabee. Any further discussion? Absence of discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Next is resolution number 2, again submitted by the Framingham School Committee to reform circuit breaker funding. Any thoughts on this?
The Somerset Public School voted yes at the last meeting.
Yeah,
This seems to be addressed to an issue. Does the circuit breaker apply only to out-of-district placements at the present time?
No, it can include med therapeutic services or in-district students.
Okay.
The problem is that you have to at least spend about $43,000 on each student, whether that's services or tuition, and I think what they're getting at is that they should be lowering that, or lowering it, because a lot of tuitions aren't even close to $43,000, so it's...
They're simply asking that the association propose legislation that would implement the recommendations of the Foundation Budget Review Commission, which should recommend greater support for special ed. So I'll entertain a motion to direct the delegate to vote in favor of this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Field and seconded by Mr. Machado. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is a resolution from the Framingham School Committee, which seeks to authorize the Massachusetts Association of School Committees to investigate instituting litigation to increase the funding of public education based upon the Massachusetts Supreme Court's decision in the McDuffie case, which determined that every student is entitled to a free public education. And this doesn't seem to be recommended by the MASC Board of Directors. One of the things that I wondered about is it talks about funding this litigation from the reserves of the association. I don't know what what the reserves of the association are, or what the likely cost of this litigation is. It does suggest that they should assess the likelihood of success, so. Any discussion on this? May I suggest that perhaps we leave this to the discretion of the delegate based on the discussion that occurs at the assembly?
Sure. Just as an FYI, Somerset voted yes, but we also gave the delegate the opportunity to also sway from this if need be.
So I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, well, motion made by Mr. Giliducci and seconded by Mrs. Field. For a moment too late.
How to get into it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. All right, next one is privatization of public education and oversight of public schools, including small and regional districts. This is submitted by the Massachusetts Association of School Committee Board of Directors, and essentially it's consistent with the association's policy that the involvement of the Board of Elementary Education and the Secretary of Education in oversight of schools and school districts should be utilized sparingly, and that the operation of schools should be left to the local governing authorities. Any discussion on this matter? And I would,
Somerset Public School voted yes on this one.
yes, I mean, I think this is more of a statement of policy, and so I'll entertain a motion to direct our delegate to vote in favor of Resolution 4.
So moved.
Second?
Motion made by Mr. Machado and seconded by Mrs. Field. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Next is the use of federal funds. This is again submitted by the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. And once again, it's suggesting that the legislature limit the ability of the Commissioner of Education, the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, to take for its own purposes or use funds that are appropriated in certain line items for the ESSA, the Perkins Vocational Technical Education Act, and programs under the oversight of the Department of Agriculture, which essentially would be school lunch, the school lunch program. And I'm not sure whether there have been instances where Department of Elementary and Secondary Education used some of those grant funds for overhead expenses. That may be the case. I don't know, but certainly it inures to our benefit for all of that money to go directly to the local school districts. So I'd entertain a motion to direct our delegate to vote in favor of that resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Fields, seconded by Mr. Machado. And any further discussion? Absence of discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Next is a resolution submitted by the Worcester School Committee, but sponsored by the Massachusetts Association of School Committee Boards of Directors. Once again, it is dealing with special education and health insurance costs. There is a concern that some of the changes that are being made to the Affordable Care Act let me see, this may be the next one. Maybe the next one. Yes, this is to request implementation of the recommendations of the Legislative Commission that recommended additional funding for Chapter 78. So adjustments to the foundation budget and ultimately an increase in Chapter 78. So unless there's thought to the contrary, I'd suggest or recommend that we authorize the delegate to vote in favor
Yes.
of this resolution.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Machado and seconded by Mr. Larrabee. Any further discussion? In the absence of discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Can
And
we-
finally,
Can we authorize you to be emphatic on that one?
emphatic?
Yeah.
Well, as we said when the commission was meeting, all it will take is an additional $2 billion. And unfortunately, where $2 billion is gonna come from, particularly with the discussion that's going on about the recent action to eliminate subsidies for insurance companies and the prospect of substantial increased costs under Mass Health. The prospect of $2 billion more for public education seems to be a long stretch, but anyway, everything helps. So finally, we have resolution number 7, which is, again, it's related to the Affordable Care Act because there is concern that some of the changes that have already been implemented by executive order may restrict Medicaid reimbursement for some of the expenses that a school district typically incurs in terms of therapy for students. And so it's urging that Congress preserve the Affordable Care Act and its expansion of Medicare programs to the states, and that it's actually also asking the Massachusetts General Court to require 100% of Medicaid reimbursement to cities and towns be provided in full to the public schools of each municipality to underwrite the cost of providing an adequate education. The regional school district doesn't really deal with that issue because as a separate entity, we receive our Medicaid reimbursement directly, but the K-8 school district has faced this issue as to whether the town takes those payments into general revenue or credits it to the school budget. So I would recommend that we authorize the delegate to vote in favor of that resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Machado and seconded by Mr. Giliducci. Any further discussion? In the absence of further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. That probably would also benefit the Berkley K-8 school district.
Yes.
All right. So. Just return to the agenda. We skipped over a matter under financial that Mr. Machado asked that I place on the agenda, and that's with respect to membership fees. So, Mr. Machado, we did have some information provided by the Director of Business and Finance regarding membership fees. Actually, I would suggest that in conjunction with this item that we also discuss the renewal of our membership in the Bristol County Chamber of Commerce. And there's also a copy of the statement that we've received from the Bristol County Chamber of Commerce for our annual membership fee, which is $315. So, Mr. Machado.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. First, one of the reasons why I look at some membership fees, I don't know if in my household, a couple years ago, I eliminated many memberships that I belonged to because I realized I was a member of the Knights of Columbus. I was a member of, this organization, this organization, this organization, and this organization. and it just became a routine pencil whip. I write out the checks, send them up, and when's the last time I actually benefited from any of these memberships that I belong to? Or do they have a purpose that I felt, do I still strongly believe in what their missions were, and or anything like that? So it's kind of funny that the other day I received another membership fee for something else that I never used that somehow got slipped by, and I was just wondering how about our school districts? Do we currently do the same thing? And then what I really started thinking was more of our partner in this group, which is the town of Berkley as well. You know, here we are, we have parents supporting their school systems in Berkley. We have in Somerset, we're gonna have financial issues also as well. So I was just wondering, is there any way that we could see how many other school districts are part of these organizations? What benefits do they bring to our school district? And is it something that we're really utilizing? And if we are utilizing, let's say, something as small as, you know, $315, is there a way that we can ask for a waiver? I know that the principals and the superintendent is members of many of these groups, but I'm just looking at a quick total of what we received today. And again, if it's a value and there's some value and the membership really feels that it is, then fine. But I'm just looking at a total that was provided this year of $14,307.15 for FY18, and last year it was $17,188. So it was nice to see that it has gone down. So maybe you already had this discussion last year before I was on the board. But I'm just wondering, even with the current membership, I would just like to see, you know, maybe we can really look at some of these and see if it's really necessary. Now, obviously, some of the big ones like MASC, that's, you know, Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents, you know, obviously that has value. But I was just wondering about the others, because some of these that I really, MEASC, obviously, that's necessary, but any of the others that it's not pointed at any particular one. It's more, I would ask that we really consider some of these before we just write out the check and automatically send that to them.
Well, I think for this year, we've already enrolled or renewed our membership in these organizations, generally speaking, haven't we? I think what I would suggest is that we refer the issue to the budget subcommittee and ask them to look at each one of these memberships. Honestly, I looked at them and I don't see many that I would question. In fact, I thought when you asked for this information there might be more, Mr. Machado, but some of them, the PCC, I would like to know how many of our students are participating in that program, and that I know that it's an excellent program. I just don't know whether we're marketing it to our students and they're actually participating. And I would like to know that. Most of these other associations, certainly the Massachusetts Association of School Committees provides a lot of information and an important conference. The Superintendent's Association, Bridgewater State University, that's the program that we recently initiated to provide an opportunity for some of our students to participate in that very, very important program. So I think that that's an acceptable approach, that we ask the budget subcommittee at the initial stages of the budget process to look for justification for these memberships. And during the budget process, we can come back with a report on the conclusions that the subcommittee reached, and the committee will have an opportunity for further questions and input. The one that's on the agenda tonight, probably would have asked Mrs. Gagliardi to speak to this, but since she isn't feeling well, I can speak to it, perhaps not as effectively as she can, but I believe that this is a very important organization for our regional school district to be a part of. One of the primary focuses of the Bristol County Chamber of Commerce, thanks in, I think, significant part to Nick Christ, who is the CEO of Bay Coast Bank, has an incredible focus on public education. Their focus started initially in Fall River, where the needs are great, but it's much broader than that, and it has an education subcommittee that Mrs. Gagliardi has been part of, and now I believe our superintendent has been invited to join. I had an opportunity to attend those committee meetings on one or two occasions, filling in for Mrs. Gagliardi when she couldn't attend. The people who are members of that committee, and Mr. Schoonover can add to this if appropriate, but the president of Bristol Community College was a member of that committee when I was there. His wife, who is an educator, was a member of that committee. The Fall River superintendent was there, was a member. The Diamond superintendent was a member. And the programs that they're working on and supporting are really very significant. And as an outcrop of our membership, we had at least one of their business after hours programs at our high school, and I believe that we're on the schedule for a business after hours again this year at some point during the course of the year. And it's an opportunity for us to reach out to the business community and let them see what's going on at our high school. So for $315, I think this is a very worthwhile expenditure. And I would say in addition to that, normally membership in this Chamber of Commerce is based on the number of employees that you have. And we obviously employ in excess of 100 employees. Our membership fee based on that calculation would be in the thousands of dollars, and instead they have given us what is really just a nominal membership fee. So I would strongly recommend that we continue our membership in the Bristol County Chamber of Commerce. Any other thoughts on that particular matter?
I honestly have no issue. Like I said, when I asked this to be on the agenda, I think you had mentioned, is this about the Chamber of Commerce? And I said, no, I too was very surprised on the list of memberships, because I hadn't seen that list until it was forwarded to us. I'm just wondering, regarding the Chamber of Commerce and, knowing that our membership should be $1,000 and they're giving it to us for like $315, I was just wondering, would it make sense at their next meeting to see if they could waive the fees to the public schools? Because to me, I'm just looking at it, obviously they're very focused on education. I think it's great that they are, but I'm just thinking someone may have never asked them to waive public schools for their membership, because if someone probably just listens to the thing, we're taking public school monies for a membership fee for something, they may even say, you know what, we never thought of that, and probably just waive it. I'm just bring it up to one of their meetings before, because again, it could be just the normal, here's your discounted fee, okay, we'll send a check, but they may say, no, we have to at least charge a $350 because that covers the costs for you being a member, for, maybe it's insurance purposes or something like that. So there may be a reason why it's only $315, but I would just like to ask that question to them, because I don't see, I'm sure we're not a big membership of the chamber, but I'm sure they, just ask. It doesn't hurt to ask, and if they say no, then we continue to be a member, especially if the chairman feels it so strongly that we should continue our relationship. So that's my only thing.
Okay, I think we could make that request. We've been a member now for probably 3 or 4 years, and when we initially joined, I believe what the $300 represents is kind of the base fee, and then there's a supplement based on your number of employees. So they gave us the base fee without any charge for the number of employees that we have in our group, which was a significant concession. And when I say, I think our fee based on the number of employees, it wouldn't be $1,000, it would be several $1,000s.
Okay.
But, so why don't I propose that we have a motion to make the request of the chamber to continue our membership with a waiver of the fee, but if that isn't possible, that we approve the renewal of our membership at $315.
Yeah, and again, I'll move the motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second?
Motion made by Mr. Machado and seconded by Mrs. Field. Any further discussion?
Yeah, and just if, when we do make that request to them, just, just let them know that, our towns are struggling. We had an override fail in one of our partner towns there, where their parents had to submit funds out of, to keep their programs alive in their town, and also in Somerset. We're gonna be facing tough times, and, every penny counts, and that we actually have to institute user fees for our students. To me, if they could waive the fees, that would be great, and if not, they may have a great reason, like what you said, it's the base fee, but it may be even less than that. So, and I wouldn't just recommend for the Somerset Berkley High School, I would also recommend for Diamond, and I think you mentioned Durfee as well. I would recommend the committee really, in my opinion, you would want every school district to be involved in that, because, but there may be school districts that just say, no, it's gonna cost $300 and some odd dollars, it's gonna cost $1,000 or whatever the case. I think if someone really, it's just public school money going into a membership. So that's my only thing. But I again, as you can see, I'm not against any particular one. I made the motion, I'll be voting for it. It's just, let's ask.
Okay.
Do we always pay the optional donation? Just asking.
What's that?
$10.
Yeah.
Um,
I just asked, do we always pay it?
I can't say with certainty.
I remember.
I can't say with certainty.
It's one of those things, it's like I tell everyone, like AAA. It's one of the things that I have, but if you ever look at your bill, they automatically put a donation automatically on it. It's just, if you don't pay attention to it, things just keep on going, so.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Unanimous. And with respect to the memberships generally, I'll entertain a motion to refer the issue to the Budget Subcommittee for review.
So
and
moved.
report.
Second?
A motion made by Mr. Machado and seconded by Mr. Larrabee. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay, so. What time do we have? Oh, 8:20. We're not going to discuss the summer retreat follow-up, or again, deferring Mrs. Gagliardi really wanted to get this off her list of to-dos, but unfortunately she wasn't up to coming. Is the advisory update, is Mr. Lanzinski here for the
He is.
advisory? Oh, I'm sorry to have kept, I should have advanced that on the agenda, but anyway, why don't we take that item?
So I was asked by Mr. Schoonover to speak a little bit about the advisories and the different topics that we had. And when we started the advisory last year, we were kind of coming in cold. And so what we did was we listened to what the future search people had said they would like to see us talk to students about, and we created those topics through their input. And part of this process that I wanted to do is make sure that the kids are telling us what they would like to see. And so at the end of the year last year, we gave them a survey, they filled it out, and we sat as a committee right after everybody got out of school and sat and said, what are the common themes that we're seeing? And one of the largest, some of the themes had to do with more of the structure of the advisory and how we do certain things, and some of it was more topical. And when we looked at the topics, the topic of financial literacy was huge. It came up overwhelmingly over and over and over and over again. And Mr. McDonald came and did our advisory for financial literacy last year, did a great job. He focused more on how to write a check, how to do those types of things, and the feedback we got was that he was great, except we don't write a lot of checks anymore. And so how do we do those other parts that are going on? So we really wanted to focus this year on that financial literacy, get that to students. It's what they're clamoring for. So you can see, I think you have it in front of you, the list. We started off actually with the Credit for Life program, and our PSAT was all on one day. And it was a huge success, and I know Mrs. Gagliardi was a huge help with helping kick that off in Bay Coast Bank, and we had over 50 to 75 volunteers from the community who came in. I think actually the best person to talk about it would be Kara. Kara was there as a senior. Seniors and freshmen both did it, and if you don't mind, Kara, just talk about. Now I understand that you had a tough experience with your process, but why don't you talk a little bit about it?
So what happens, you get a credit score based on your attendance. So last year, around Black and White, I got very sick. So I missed about 20 days of school. So my credit score was very low, so I couldn't buy a car, and they couldn't give me insurance, I couldn't buy a house, but more people had more success so that they were able to buy a house and buy a car and get all the insurance and the other needs. And it was actually very helpful. I think that helped the seniors more than the freshmen just because they were a little like cold on the subject. They weren't really, I don't know, into it as more, but coming as a senior and going to the Credit Life, it really helped us put into perspective like, oh, we have to think about grocery costs, and like we have to think about what clothes we're gonna have to wear to work when we get a job. You have to get like certain outfits, you can't just go in jeans. So that was interesting. And we also got to like spin a wheel of fortune, I guess, and it just kind of showed that like anything can happen. I think my computer broke and I had to pay like $400, didn't even have any credit, and I was paying another $400. So yeah, it just showed. It was a lot of fun. I think a lot of people really liked it. A lot of teachers went to, and they seemed to like it too. It was kind of funny about the credit scores, seeing what everyone had.
So we had seniors and freshmen both do it, and what we did was they all had their sheets that they had to fill out, and they went through the process. And then we gave away raffle prizes, so one person from the senior class received free tickets to the Black and White. A freshman got free tickets to go to the freshman-sophomore semi-final because they filled out and they did it completely. And the freshmen, what we've done is we've held onto their sheets. And the purpose for this is next year they'll do PSAT, the year after they'll do PSAT. As a senior, they're going to go through the process again, and then what we're going to do is give them back what they did their freshman year, so they can compare how they did and what their thought process was the first time versus the second time, and how they grew. And so I think that's a nice little touch for us doing that. But it was a massive undertaking, but Julie Gagliardi has her army of volunteers that come in and strategically planned, and it really went really, really well. And I was very impressed with how the students took it. And it's definitely something we want to do going again in the future. So then in November, we're using that as our rollout day, and that's when everybody gets devices. We want to make sure everything is going through. We usually do our advisories in the middle of the school day. We're going to move it to the end of the school day simply because we're handing most of the kids boxes with Chromebooks and everything else, and we don't want the cardboard boxes just being strewn through the building. So here, here's your Chromebook box with all your stuff, and go home with it. And so they'll leave the advisory right at the end of the school day and go through. So that's our plan. I'm meeting with, we had a meeting in, I believe, August with EverFi over at Bittersweet Farms, which is a financial program, and they really have different modules and different types of things that has to do with financial literacy. So the Credit for Life was nice because they got to go through and make a budget and do that whole thing, but there are other aspects. So EverFi is going to help us bring these modules in, and we're going to look at the modules that they have and make it specific for the students of that age level. So something that's more appropriate for freshmen versus something that's more appropriate for seniors. So we want to try to hit 3 of those modules over the course of the year to really fit the needs of what students were looking for. Naviance is our guidance software, and we've also set it up so that every single class sees a different kind of presentation to make sure that everybody's getting what they need. So a freshman may not need to know how to fill out a college app, but you know, we can set them up through the process so that way every year they see a different presentation and can get used to doing that. One of the big things, I would say it was the biggest thing that came through, was they wanted to know about basic life skills. What happens when you get into a car accident? What should you do? How do you change a tire? How do you, I have to vote, how do I register to vote? So there's a lot of these simple things that until you get stuck in that situation for the first time, maybe you don't know how to do, and they just want to be prepared for it. So one of the things I want to be able to do is reach out to, from the advisory, I love reaching out to community members to try to bring them in to be part of it, let the kids see different people. So, we'll be talking to the Somerset Police Department, and maybe we can get somebody to talk about that. Somebody from the insurance agency, hey, you need to call the insurance. This is the information you're going to need to know when you call in for this. I've already talked to the town clerk in Somerset, and I need to talk to the town clerk in Berkley. When they do their voter registration week, have them kind of film one of these presentations or a little spot for one so they can learn how to do it. And then the plan is to have them outside of the cafeteria, student dining center, so that as students who are able to be of age to register to vote, they can come right through and sign up right where they're there. We did a program about 2 years ago with Lindilli's. Your Vote is Magic, I believe was her program,
Yes.
was the name, and it was excellent. And we had quite a number of students sign up to vote right after that presentation. This is a little bit different how we're handling it, but we want to still gain momentum with the whole process and go forward. Interviewing skills. Most of these students haven't gone on real interviews. Most of the time it's filling out the electronic form at McDonald's or something like that. But what's it really like when you have somebody looking at you and asking you questions that maybe you're not prepared for? Simple things. How do you dress? How do you look them in the eye? How do you shake their hand? Things that I know DECA works on with their students. But we want to make sure it's more than just the DECA students who are learning that, because we've all gone through interviews. So using that as a format. We also want to talk about bullying and being able to have Ann Nassif and the ABC create one and really talk about some of the issues that are going on and how to be strong and come forward and let us help them and let them be aware of it. And then of course right at the end is the survey. The last one is always the survey to let us know what they feel and what they would like to see going forward, and let that inform us, so as we in the summer can look at that and say, okay, let's plan for this one, plan for that one, what are we going to need to make this happen? So that's our plan for advisory. It's always back to what the students want, what the students need, and then we find a way to make it happen.
That's great.
Any questions?
Sounds
Awesome.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let me just see if there's anything else that we have to cover this evening. We have minutes of our meeting of October 3rd, 2017, which have been distributed to the committee. I would entertain a motion to approve the open session minutes of October 13th, 2017.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Larrabee and seconded by, motion was made by Mr. Machado and seconded by Mr. Larrabee. Any discussion? In the absence of discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous. We do need a brief executive session, and as I said, our meeting must end by 8:45. So I think we should defer the remaining items. We have policy updates from the Massachusetts Association of School Committees and Somerset and Somerset Berkley updates. I had hoped to talk about the Music Town Festival activities because we had a terrific Music Town Festival. Kara is one of the Music Town princesses, and congratulations to her. I would just say, I I was at all of the Music Town activities with the exception of the parade because I had to be in another place for a very special event. The Pops concert was great. I can never underestimate the enthusiasm of Mr. Marshall and Mr. Bianco in terms of leading their groups. The groups had relatively short amount of time to practice, and they did a great job, both the show choir and the jazz band. And I was at the Kiddies Day with my granddaughter, who had a wonderful time. She was marching around the track with the flag. Thanks in large part to Kara, I really wanted to single out the court, the king and the queen and the princesses, because they were incredible with the kids. They really were. They embraced the kids. They made a very special effort for them to understand what the band was about, what the instruments were about. My granddaughter's more interested in the princesses and the flag twirlers than she is the musical instruments, but she had a great time, and so I was really impressed with the level of maturity that our students showed in terms of really making the youngsters feel really a part of the day. So with that, I will entertain a motion to enter executive session.
Mr. Pierce, can we just mention the football game Friday night? The
Yes.
playoff.
Yes, I was at the last Friday night's football game against Wareham. It was a heartbreaker. We thought after the team scored a touchdown with about a minute and a half left in the game that we're all set. And unfortunately for Wareham, it was kind of a miraculous ending to the game, and they managed to score. It was a much closer game than the score showed. And the team is playing Foxborough on Friday night. And I would be there. I would be there, except I have to go to the Halloween dance at the North Elementary School on Friday night. But I urge everyone to come out and cheer on our team. They're facing, Foxborough does not have as good a record as we do, but I think they're a significantly larger school.
I believe Foxborough has more students.
They're in a higher
And
division.
in a very significant, a very difficult conference that they're in.
Yeah.
Yes, so the best of luck to our team. They've had a great season, they really have, and a lot of their players are juniors, so that bodes well for next year as well. So with that, I would entertain a motion pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the Somerset Teachers Association, Units A and B, and with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees Clerical Unit, because an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body and the chair so declares, the committee will not return to open session at the conclusion of the executive session. I have a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Field and seconded by Mr. Larrabee. Roll call vote. Mr. Giliducci?
Aye.
Mrs. Field?
Aye.
Mr. Larrabee?
Aye.
Mr. Machado?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming.